Welcome, everyone. Good evening. Daniel, are we coming through, and is everything fine? Great. Welcome, everybody. I'm Rabbi Steve Cohen from Congregation B'nai B'rith. Most of you know me, but in case you don't, nice to meet you. Thank you so much for coming out tonight. I just want to say a couple of quick words of thanks and then to introduce our speaker. I want to really express my profound gratitude to Rabbi Ira Yudovin, who took the initiative to pull this series together. And yeah, and I want to say up front that if you have strong feelings, whatever they are, if you have strong feelings about what's going on in Israel right now, whatever those feelings are, you'll probably hear something either tonight or at one of the other talks or at a number of them that you disagree with, that you take issue with. We are doing our very best. I just want to say we're doing our very best to try to create, as we have been in the past, trying to create an atmosphere in which people who have different opinions can actually communicate and listen to each other, learn from each other, and to me, that's one of the highest goals of this program. And I really feel that Rabbi Yudovin has put together a wonderful series of speakers. All of the speakers are from our local community, and we have a great community here. So this is our attempt to speak to a very profoundly important moment in Israel's history and in our collective story. Tonight, our first speaker is a newcomer to I think you still count as a newcomer, but not for much longer, in our Jewish community, Rabbi Bel Michael, who I think I just met less than a year ago. I was informed by our executive director, Elizabeth Gaines, that there was a new rabbi in town that it was important that I get to meet. And truly, as soon as I met her, I felt like we have a great new resource in our community. So I'm actually, I don't like to do this, but I want to, in this case, to just read the biographical information that Rabbi Bel gave me tonight so that you can just have a little bit of a sense of who she is. Rabbi Bel Michael, newcomer to Santa Barbara, is the founder and spiritual leader of the Israeli cultural community Shira Chadasha LA, conducted entirely in Hebrew. So this is a Israeli cultural community based in Los Angeles, and she's the founder and the spiritual leader of that group. She was ordained as a rabbi by the Academy for Jewish Religion down in LA in 2013, so 10 years ago. She served as the campus rabbi and Hillel founding director at California Lutheran University for 7 years. She received her doctorate degree from Hebrew Union College, which is the school that I attended for rabbinic school. She received her doctorate from HUC in 2022. Her dissertation asked the question, how does biblical literature treat women in vulnerable situations? So obviously that's not her topic tonight, but I'm sure that we will have a chance to learn from Rabbi Bel on that topic and many others in the future. Her minor research projects were in the fields of American Jewish history and contemporary Jewish thought. So we couldn't ask for someone better to kick off this series, which is going to be continuing through April and into the first week of May. But tonight, we are really honored to have as our speaker, Rabbi Bel Michael. Welcome.
Got it. Shalom to everyone here in the house and babayit at home. As you can hear from my accent, I was born in Russia, but lived most of my life in Israel. So I have a little bit of a Russian and a little bit of Israeli accent. So I self-identify as Israeli. Hence, this is in my gut. This is important to me. So when Rabbi Cohen emailed me and asked me the non-assuming question, if I can cover 3,000 years, he said, would you be willing to write about the connection between the Jewish people and Eretz Yisrael? And I mean the 3,000 years of, I said, well, okay. And then I spoke with Rabbi Ira, and he said, why start from the destruction of the temple, as I wanted to say? I said, why not from Abraham? So here's another millennia to cover. I said, well, you're right. So thank you to both for challenging me. I went on a journey. I want to share it with you. So, why we as Americans should care for what's going on in Israel. Just a few thoughts. For the why. Why are you here?
The diaspora is a very major point of being Jewish.
Excellent. One more point, one more person, and we're moving on.
Well, we see similar things happening here in the United States, and it's kind of mind-boggling, so I want to know more about it.
And last one, and we'll move on.
Israel is practically and psychologically the reason why Jewish people in the world could feel safe.
Absolutely. So the main reason, because we're Jews, because we're Jewish. And even the origin of the word Jews, where does it come from? Judah. So exactly. The origin of the name, it started with the tribe of Yehuda, Judah, but then with the Roman conquering of Judea, province Judea, it became province Judea, hence known to the world, those crazy people from the province of Judea. Later, the name was changed to Syria, Palestina, to disconnect from the people of Judea to the land of Judea. And as a historical, now we're just going to go on a historical journey of the connection between the Jewish people to the land of Israel. Of course, we have a promised land to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Anyone wants to read just from the very beginning? A volunteer? It's a little bit of a text study. That's what Jews do.
Go from your country, your people, and your father's household to the land I show you. I will make you into a great nation, and I will bless you. I will make your name great, and you will be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you, and whoever curses you, I will curse, and all peoples on earth will be blessed through you. Genesis 12:1.
Yet, as we all know, this promise, oh yeah, and of course, I will give the land. You want to continue, or?
The land I gave to Abraham and Isaac, I also give to you, and I will give this land to your descendants after you. Genesis 35:12.
And here we have this generation, for one, the connection of generations and the promised land. And here we are, Bnei Israel, here's Pesach coming, we left Egypt, 40 years in the desert, and then they are entering Eretz Yisrael. So it's a little bit of text study, because I want you to see how we are connected through sources, not just talk, but how we are connected. And I'm sorry, I do need you to read, so Anyone?
But the land you are crossing, the Jordan, to take possession of is a land of mountains and valleys that drinks rain from heaven. It is a land of Adonai, your God, cares for. Speak to the Israelites and say to them, I am the Lord your God. You must not do as they do in Egypt, where you used to live, and you must not do as they did in the land of Canaan, where I am bringing you. Do not follow their practices. You must obey my laws and be careful to follow my decrees.
So, entering the land is a gift. It's a promised gift from Adonai, from God to the Jewish people, yet it came with a caveat. What was the caveat? Behave. And what happened if you disbehave? Well, expulsion. And we have the first Babylonian exile, 597, and you all know the Bonnie M song, On the Rivers of Babylon. It actually has a connection. It has reference from Golei Bavel, and they sat and wept, and they were heartbroken for 70 years. And what happened later? Anyone remembers? So after 70 years, miraculously, we have the concept of Shivat Zion. Cyrus, anyone wants to read?
Oh, I have it.
Bevakasha.
Thus said Cyrus, king of Persia, all the kingdoms of the earth have the Lord, the God of heaven, given me, and he have charged me to build him a house in Jerusalem, which is in Judah. Whosoever there is among you all, I don't have my glasses. Whoever there is among you of all his people, his God be with him. Let him go up to Jerusalem, which is in Judah, and build the house of the Lord, the God of Israel. He is the God who is in Jerusalem.
Thank you. 1 second before we go on. So Persia conquered Babylonia. Cyrus is the king of all the empire, and he's doing relocation to all nations. He let them go back all nations would go back to their places. He figured that strategically it will be beneficial for him, which apparently he was right. Less tension. Each will go to their place. They will worship. They will have their spiritual, religious practices, yet under Persian rule. So this is Hatzharat Koresh. And of course, he says it's given to me by God, God of Israel, right? And whoever cannot go, what should they do? Please continue.
And whosoever is left in any place where he sojourned, let the men of his place help him with silver and with gold and with goods and with beasts beside the freewill offering for the house of God, which is in Jerusalem.
So this is the beginning of Jewish fundraising. You cannot come, you have to support. But really, it is important, and we'll see it working till today. It's okay. Jews were in Israel, and then for almost 500 years, they built a temple, lived life, and Roman exile, the year 70. And here is the beginning of the hope of return, a return. Hatikva, our Jewish anthem. Anyone? You can read the Hebrew. He will read the Hebrew. I'm sure you know the words. Bevakasha.
כל עוד בלבב פנימה, נפש יהודי הומיה, ולפאתי מזרח קדימה, עין לציון צופיה. עוד לא אבדה תקוותנו, התקווה בת שנות 2000, להיות עם חופשי בארצנו, ארץ ציון וירושלים.
You know the words. It's the Jewish anthem for 2,000 years. And this hope to return to the land of Israel and live as free people was articulated and formulated by Naftali Hertz Imber, 1878. Anyone who reads the English so will understand the translation. It's a text study. We read this text and participate participate.
As long as in the heart within the soul of a Jew still yearns, and onward towards the ends of the east, an eye still gazes toward Zion. Our hope is not yet lost, the hope of 2,000 years, to be a free nation in our land, the land of Zion and Jerusalem.
So here's the era of the Jews exiled from Israel, and now we're moving on to the next era, the era of the rabbis, what we Hebrews say Chazal, but the rabbis who lived in Israel. Now, it is important to remember that although the majority of Jewish people was exiled and spread around, let's say, the Middle East, there was always presence in Eretz Yisrael of Jews. Some were in the Galilee, some were in Tiberias, hence we have Tiberias, Jerusalem, and Hebron. We have what you know as Talmud Bavli and Talmud Yerushalmi. That means the Talmud was written, some of it was written in Bavel, and a different corpus was written in Tiberia. It's called Yerushalmi, but it's Talmud Eretz Yisrael. So we have ongoing Jewish presence and Jewish scholarship within Eretz Yisrael for 500 years. And let's see what different rabbis from that time thought, what was the Jewish thought about Eretz Yisrael. So, anyone, bevakasha.
Eretz Israel is the center for all Jewish communities scattered around the world. The mitzvah of settling in the land of Israel is greater to all other mitzvot. Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai, the Holy One, bestowed 3 gifts on the people of Israel: the Torah, Eretz Israel, and the world to come.
So the importance of Eretz Israel, and the Hebrew says, if anyone here, except my husband, okay, Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, he's a very known rabbi, said, Atid HaKadosh Baruch Hu la'asot et Yerushalayim metropolita, like metropolitan, the center to the whole world. So Jerusalem would be the center of the whole, what he would think about the world, but also the Jewish world. Whoever is in diaspora, whoever is in the Galut, the center is Jerusalem. And the settling the land is equivalent. I thought it would be way later, but the thought that settling the land is as equal to all mitzvot, I thought it was Rav Kook, but apparently it was earlier, from already Mishnah. And of course, think about it. Eretz Yisrael is equal as the Torah, according to the rabbis. We're moving, questions so far? Okay. Moving forward to medieval period. Medieval period, Jewish philosophies, we have a few. Anyone who wants to read?
Jewish philosophy in the medieval period, Rabbi Yehuda Halevi, my heart is in the east and I am in the ends of the west. The Kasari, although the Kasar converted the whole of his land to Judaism, the traveler still went to Eretz Israel.
So, one second. Rabbi Yehuda Levi also wrote a book by the name HaKuzari, the Kuzari. I thought it would be with a Z, but then it with an S, doesn't matter. And the whole story was trying to convince the Kuzar, the ruler of the land of the Kuzarim, about Judaism. The Kuzar invited Rabbi Halevi, or the traveler, and the whole book is a debate. But at the end of the book, the Kuzar was convinced. You're right. Let's go. Let's be Jewish. So he converted the whole of his land to Judaism. So you can think, problem solved. Yet, the Kuzar, or the Rabbi Yehuda Levi, like he would say, his traveler left and moved to Eretz Yisrael. And the metaphor that he used is of the vineyard. Please continue.
The vineyard metaphor, the land has a special quality.
As every grape, and you know, we live in Santa Barbara, wine is important, right? Every grape needs a special land, a special conditions, right? To make good grapes, good wine. Hence, every nation, every people need their own land with its special qualities. So Eretz Yisrael has a special quality that is good or is connected to the Jewish people. That's the vineyard metaphor. And the Rambam said,
The stipulation for salvation and revival of prophecy is the existence of a free Jewish state which lives in accordance with God's law. Abrabanel's interpretation of the guide for the perplexed.
so this is Jewish philosophy. All these philosophers were in Spain. And we're talking about 1200 to the 1400. And yet, where's their heart? In Eretz Yisrael. The mindset is all about Eretz Yisrael. Questions so far? Yeah. I'm sorry, Rabbi Cohen.
So if these rabbis are in Spain, but they're talking about what's happening in Israel, how much communication is there between the two countries?
Excellent question. At times there was always, and I'm just like sliding a bit, there was always correspondence, igrot, she'elot, utshuvot, questions and answers between communities within Israel. Sometimes to Babylonia, which used to be the center of Jewish thought, and always with Israel. So there is communication with, correspondence, shlichim, people going back and forth. Excellent question. So we are moving, because I have to cover 4,000 years, so let's go. Okay, moving on to Kabbalah. The Kabbalists already, so we're talking after the expulsion from Spain. Do you remember the date? Just a quiz. Right, 1492. So we're talking about the expulsion from Spain and Jews moving in to Eretz Yisrael, among other places, of course. And let's see how the Kabbalists thought about Eretz Yisrael. So, anyone? Anyone from the back? Yes. You want Gil to go around, Rabbi Cohen?
Eretz Yisrael, Emma Aliyah, the Supreme Mother. Only in Eretz Yisrael there will be a complete union with the Holy One. The Shekhinah dwells within Israel when it's on its land. Maharal from Prague, 1512. Each nation has its own natural place. The place of the Jewish people is in the land of Israel.
So, we have God, and we have the Supreme Mother. The land is the Supreme Mother. And the union, they're talking in Kabbalah, there is a lot about union of Sfirot, and also between God and the Jewish people. And this union can happen only where? To its fulfillment, to its fullest, in Eretz Yisrael. Now, I use this symbol of Magen David, which we all know. There are many interpretations. I'm not saying what I'm going to say is the only one, but I want you to look at something. The top triangle, the top is God. The one underneath, the spitz, how do you say spitz? The pointy thing underneath is Eretz Yisrael. And the vertical are the Jewish people and all these connections between God and Kabbalah. I'm not saying this is only, but I'm saying it's a way to think about as a symbol of the connection between God, Eretz Yisrael, and the Jewish people. All this triangle. There's another thought, which is very interesting. Anyone who wants to read that?
Rabbi Avram Azuli. The whole land is covered with scabs, chaos, and darkness. Only in one place there is an opening for the divine light. This holy opening that connects heaven and earth, this place is Eretz Yisrael. The path for tikkun and connecting all the sefot leads to Eretz Yisrael.
Thank you. So according to the Kabbalistic view, like Tohu Vavohu, the beginning, you remember from Genesis? So the whole land is covered with darkness and chaos and darkness, and there was one vertex, one place of light, of connection of light and divine light. And during the destruction of the temple, this vertex was closed, this opening was closed, but only tiny window of opportunity was open for divine light to light the world. And the purpose of every Jew is what? Is to keep this light open and this window open. And how do you do it? You have to be in Eretz Yisrael, because the vertex is in Eretz Yisrael. So a pious Jew, that's what they do. They, indeed, many Jews went to Eretz Yisrael, as we know from the Kabbalists of Tzfat. They settled in Tzfat, which was a center of intellect and prosperity, but also in Jerusalem and Hebron, Tiberias, and other places. So Eretz Yisrael, throughout the generations, that's the point I'm trying to make. Eretz Yisrael, throughout the generations of Jewish existence, always was the center of their spiritual life, their religious life, and political life. Political is a different stuff. One more interesting, so we're moving to the 18th century. Kabed et avicha ve'et imecha. Anyone wants to read that? I'll go fast because I don't. We know this commandment, right? Honor your father and mother. And what does he say? What the interpretation here? So the mother, remember? The Ima Elyona, the mother, the supreme mother. Father is God and mother is Eretz Yisrael. And this is the worship. Moving on to Rabbi Soloveitchik, and he says, he asks the question, does every Jew has a share in the ownership of the land? What do you think? Yes. Is it a personal thing, like me, individual thing, or it's a Jewish thing? Both is an easy answer. You can. Okay, so what does he say? No, the land does not belong to any individual Jew, but rather to the collective of the Jewish people. The land belongs to all of us. One's right of ownership of Eretz Yisrael stems for being a part of Knesset Israel, what we would call Am Israel. By the way, Knesset, the term Knesset comes from Knesset Israel, the gathering of Israel, all the Jewish people. So this is Rabbi Soloveitchik. We're moving on to the beginning of Zionism. The word Zionism, where does it come from? Zion, Nachon, Zion. Remember the Tikva. Od lo avda tikvatenu ve'ayin leTzion tzofiyah. Zion is Eretz Yisrael, biblically. So the word Zionism by itself has the connection to a specific place, to Eretz Yisrael. And the very important meaning of Zionism was a change from spiritual longing. As we know, it wasn't always spiritual. They actually did it. They actually made Aliyah to Israel. But the shift was from, oh yeah, we love Eretz Yisrael as a metaphor, as, something spiritual. We are not committed. Well, we can give donation, that's true. But here it's a political movement to establish a home for the Jewish people. Now, I want you to read something that Theodor Herzl wrote in his book. He wrote 2 books. Do you remember any? Alt-Neuland, the old and new land, old and new, and the state, their Judean state, the Judean state, Medinat HaYehudim. So, I don't know, yeah. That's his vision, Theodor Herzl, in 1896. Thank you.
Therefore, I believe that a wondrous generation of Jews will spring into existence. The Maccabees will rise again. Let me repeat once more my opening words. The Jews who wish for a state will have it. We shall live at last as free men on our own soil and die peacefully in our own homes. The world will be freed by our liberty, enriched by our wealth, magnified by our greatness. And whatever we attempt there to accomplish for our own welfare will react powerfully and beneficially for the good of humanity. Der Judenstaat, 1896.
Thank you. So this is his vision for the Jewish state. He says state for the Jewish people. We know that nationalism in Europe and anti-Semitism in Europe, you know the history, I don't want to repeat, but Zionism sprang out of Spring of Nations, the whole nationalist movements, and a lot of anti-Semitism. We're moving forward to Lord Balfour. Can they read it? No. But the point is to say that Lord Balfour coined, and he was important enough, he was a Prime Minister of Britain, to say a Jewish homeland for the Jewish people. So he coined this term, and it was important because we can say whatever we want, but to get the acknowledgement from Britain gave us the opportunity, the mandat, to establish a state in Medinat Israel. Now, after this, we also have, of course, the Holocaust, and post-Holocaust, what was important, of course, the aftermath of the Holocaust, the displaced people camps. That's the map of the displaced people camps all over. I want you to see, if you can see the picture below, and they have bulletins all over the place. It says, Eretz Yisrael le'am Yisrael. You see the posters that were hanging in the displaced camps. So all that already all over Europe, they were rallying for a place for themselves after the aftermath, after they realized what happened. Of course, we have Yetziat Europa, that's the name of the ship that began to bring Jews to Eretz Yisrael. Now you know who was ruling Eretz Yisrael, Palestine at that time? The British. So all of Aliyah Bet, the secrecy of Aliyah, of bringing Jews to Eretz Yisrael was going on. The last picture on the, I don't know, it's your right or left, Jews in America starting rallying towards the establishment of the land of Israel. And as we move forward, November 30th, 1947, it's the UN resolution. I was here at the temple when we had the vote. We listened to the vote. It was so, still have goosebumps, thrilling. So for us it was thrilling. Imagine even how much more so to Jews around the world. And remember the picture that I showed you before of Tito's Ark? The Jews of Rome came out to the streets and they walked the opposite side from Rome to Jerusalem. And they were, I have goosebumps just telling you about it. Think about their thrill, because that's the tikkun. That's going back. Another important thing is the concept of Shivat Zion. Remember we talked about, I'm saying Dreyfus, it's not Dreyfus. Yes, thank you, Cyrus. Remember the concept of Shivat Zion, the returning to Zion? Oh, I'm sorry. I think we should go back. Yes. That was the name of the ship, Shivat Zion, and of the operation of bringing secretly Jews from Algiers, the other side, to Eretz Yisrael again. So all these operations, all these concepts of the importance of Zion, Shivat Zion, the return, the Tito's Ark are important. And last but not least, and I'll leave some room for questions, how Jews, so we saw the historical connection, and I want to say how Jews who lived outside of Eretz Yisrael kept the connection to Eretz Yisrael in religious practices, daily practices, and life cycle. Do you have any ideas before I show you the slide? Passover, what will we say in Passover? בדיוק, בשנה הבאה בירושלים. It's like, okay. not just for a trip, in Aliyah. What else? We have another holiday that celebrates trees, but also Tu B'Shvat. Oh, Betach, Tisha B'Av too. You're right, I didn't think about it, but yes, Tisha B'Av is the destruction of the temple, and that we mourn. So yes, and also Tu B'Shvat, that we eat the fruits of Eretz Yisrael as a memory. Excellent, what else? When a bride and a groom get married, what do they love to do? Break the glass. Why? The sound, but also the connection to the destruction of the temple. And so this is for enjoyment. And for bereavement, do you know what we say for bereavement? The Holy Ark, yes. B'diuk Kotel HaMizrach, yes. Beautiful. Beautiful. In prayers we say of Eretz Yisrael. Yeah, you got it all. So, Kotel HaMizrach, we have the fruits, we have Passover, Chatan v'Kala. We got it. And last but not least, because I know we are here because we are worried. We are anxious, we are troubled, and we really want to know. And there's always a question of should the American people and what's the part of American Jewry in Israel? Like, why should they care and what should they donate and why should they do what they do? And I think, I think about mishpacha. We are mishpacha. And we have, I don't know if it's who's the older and who's the younger brother here? Because, Eretz Yisrael has been could be the older brother, could be the young Israel, only 75, still rascals, still going through through phases. And our brother, I don't know if it's our younger brother or older, is going through a phase, just going through some figuring it out about political identity, but it's also beyond that. And I do think that we, as brothers, we go with that, we support that, we help them in what they can, though, as we all have in our families, we may not like this brother and what's going on with him. We have criticism. It could be a brother, it could be a sister, okay? It's just, but in every family we have that, but we are a family. So this is the covering up of 4,000 years, and now I'll come down for questions.
Last week at the university, I heard Noah Tishby. And when she was speaking, she was saying, you might not like what your brother or what your family in Israel says, but you have to be proud and stand up for their existence. That of all the places, you cannot say, well, let's wipe out Israel because we don't like them, or let's badmouth Israel when we don't say a word about what's happening in other places. And I thought that was a really good point, because with family, you can criticize, but you don't throw them out.
Absolutely. Thank you. That's what I meant with this. Thank you.
Yeah, a bit tougher question. When people say, at least some people say, Lashana Haba'ah Yerushalayim, they make a distinction between Yerushalayim Lamata and Yerushalayim Lamala. And to what extent is that a theme that has gone through history? And what does that have to do with Yerushalayim Lamata?
So you should define first what's Yerushalayim.
Well, Yerushalayim Lamala, up, the spiritual, the fulfillment of the messianic dream. And Lamata is the ordinary political state. The Haredi, for instance, don't particularly care about Lamata. They talk about Lamala. And I'm wondering what the historical distinction when we say Lashana Haba'ah Yerushalayim is with respect to Lamala and Lamata.
I think that throughout the presentation, from Rabbi Yehuda Levi to Kabbalah, they meant Yerushalayim Lamata. They spoke, we think of them as spiritual and religious, but they really meant the living in Eretz Yisrael. One more thing, some write Eretz Yisrael with a Y, and some write Eretz Yisrael with an I, and I debated, how should I write it? And I figured I should write Eretz Yisrael Lamata with an I. And the Y is like the more spiritual, we love Eretz Yisrael, but there's a spiritual homeland. No. It's an I. Am Israel with, in Hebrew you read the same, right? So why should I change the English? So the way I understand it, I'm not the authority of anything. I understand that throughout the generations, and even on Shabbat when they had the pushka, the tzedakah box, it was to go to Eretz Yisrael of Lamata. So the religious and the earthy is very well connected, to my opinion. Thank you for the question, good one. More questions? Yeah. I don't, because it's not in my wheelhouse and my expertise of knowledge. I was asked to give a survey of the connection between the Jewish people to the land of Israel, and throughout the generations, that's what I found. This very, very strong bond and strong connection. And as I see it, Eretz Yisrael is going through a phase, a very difficult phase, but still, he's my brother. So, yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
I have a question. In American Jewry, there's so much interfaith marriages now. What do you feel the impact of American Jews today and the Jewish families that may very much be mixed marriages, what that impact is on support of Israel?
The question, you all heard the question. I think it's a wonderful question. I think I will ask you, the audience, because it's not one opinion for sure. So, and I'm not an authority on that. Thoughts? What do you think about the impact of interfaith marriages? Somebody from Peru or Argentina or, I don't know, anywhere in the world. Why do I care? Why should I care? So what's the impact? And the second question that I will add, what can we do to keep this connection strong? Yeah.
I just have a thought. As you were going through the history, I'm thinking of my own view and my reading, which is, what is the history of the Jews? They dared to be different. The beginning of democracy and freedom, to me, started with Jewish history, Abraham, all the millennium, forever. And so, in terms of intermarriage, we're going through a crisis in our world today where there's fascism everywhere, and now we're afraid it might be hitting Israel. They're afraid of losing their freedom. And so I think Jewish people and everybody who believes in freedom wants to relate to another person who believes in freedom.
Other thoughts? Thanks. Thank you. Yeah.
Anyone that wants to hear more about the political aspects, I don't know how many people heard Steve Zipperstein at the Federation. It may be on their website. And he spoke in the terms of legal and political information that I still remember many, many facts, different than your wonderful talk. And the big concern is, with Eretz Yisrael, from that true concept, how many Jews will continue their support with such political unrest in the country that they don't agree with. And as you said, my brother, that's very important, but there's a lot of people that are very concerned about having a disconnect, I would say, with the political system.
You know,
Bob, with your question, and you said about the intermarriage, I don't just look at it as the intermarriage. I think of it as the children of today, or the 20 or the 30 or 40-year-olds. They don't have the same feeling that I have, you know, that I am very connected. They might be Jewish, but they're not connected. And I think that when we started out having birthright, we really thought that that was going to be a way to connect them. But it hasn't shown. They're excited when they're there, but that's it. It doesn't seem to, as far as I know, you know, move forward and making them more Jewish or more connected. To answer your question, I have zero idea how to make my children and my grandchildren connected, because even if I'm connected, that doesn't mean they're connected.
Excellent. All true and all real concerns. Oh.
I think it's true that it is a time when our children and many grandchildren are less and less. I think it is true that it is a time that many children and grandchildren are less and less connected, but it isn't the first time that Jews have assimilated. And we've been around a darn long time as a people, and I think that we will continue. And I think that they will find their Judaism, whether it's the children or the grandchildren. You know, I know plenty of people whose children didn't identify, and then their grandchildren became Orthodox. So personally, I'm not too concerned about our imploding, you know, that we won't exist because people won't care to be Jewish.
I just want to share with you a caveat. In my congregation, which is an Israeli congregation, we speak Hebrew and connect to Israel. So we have a series of lectures done not by me, by like a passionate person. And yesterday was our meeting, and the first lecture was before the beginning of Eretz Yisrael. And that was a good reminder, good perspective for today, because he also talked about the Etzel and the Lechi and the Palmach, and we look at them and like as our heroes and all wonderful. No, they hated each other. They gave each other away to the Brits, you know? Like, who does that among Jews? And we know about Altalena, that they exploded, you know, the ship that was supposed to help us with all ammunition. So we have been to very, very deep and dark places even before the beginning of Eretz Yisrael. And throughout the 75 years, there was never, you know, all is good. There was always political infighting. There's nothing new about it. It's heightened now because there's so much about media. We are so exposed to that. But it's not new. And we have survived, and the Israelis say, Avarnu et Paro, na'avor gam et ze. So we have survived Pharaoh, and we have survived Altalena, and we have survived before Yitzhak Rabin was murdered. There was a huge infighting within the society of Israel. So we have been going through a lot within Israel as a society, as people, and political divide. And we've overcome. So with that optimistic view, I want us to continue. I would like to invite Rabbi Ira just to give a plug for the next.
Wow. Thank you. And thank you, Rabbi Bell. That was absolutely terrific. You made it through not only getting everything in 60 minutes, you made it in 40 minutes.
And 4,000 years.
Right. The question of connectedness, I'm going to address next week. And I'll give you the first line. most of the publicity coming out in the wake of the recent Israeli elections focused on, will Israel lose the support of American Jews and American government? I'm no less concerned with the question, will American Jews lose Israel? In other words, it's a two-way street. What will our community be without a connection to Israel? What will Israel be without a connection to American Jewry? And that'll be next week. As Rabbi Bell has mentioned, Steve Zipperstein will talk about legal aspects. A good deal of the new government's problems are focused on the court and the legal system. And Steve has an absolutely wonderful way of explaining anything, and especially this. How did we get to this with the right wing? Professor Hecht will be talking about the heirs of Jabotinsky, the rise of the right wing in Israeli life, and how we got to there. We have a right-wing government which includes people on the extreme right. And Professor Amato will be talking about the Israeli electoral system in a very interesting and kind of scary way. This whole thing has shifted on the basis of one election. What we were before and where Israel is now is the result of one election. That happens very rarely anywhere. And it's a problem built into the Israeli system. And this change that could happen, the Likud coalition is 64 seats. That's 4 more in the Knesset, 4 more than half. That's a small majority, and it's changing the nature of the country. And finally, Dan Meisel, who is the regional director of the Anti-Defamation League, will be talking about the impact of all of this on the non-Jewish community. So we've got all of this little pieces coming together, and we hope that, again, as Rabbi Cohen said, that these can be discussed without getting into any sort of a fight. And you did a splendid job of setting us up and off in just that direction. And so thank you.
Gil, did you have the husband of the rabbi?
Rebbitzin, sort of. So thanks, Bill, for navigating through the stormy seas, I guess. Very easy to go into the politics, and as growing up in Israel, we obviously have a very strong, both political and emotional. But I just want to mention something that happened today, actually. So there was a demonstration that happens. They've been going on for the past pretty much 8 to 10 weeks. And there was a demonstration in Bnei Brak by, the anti-reform, not reform Jewry, but anti-reform political reforms protesters, and they marched to Bnei Brak, and there was an expectation that it will, turn violent and it would turn ugly. Anywhere between 4,000 and 10,000 demonstrators. So they marched onto Bnei Brak, and which is predominantly ultra-Orthodox population, and the residents of Bnei Brak welcomed them with rather than stones and sticks and egging, they welcomed them with pretty much we're all brothers, and gave them food and drink and sweets and so forth. So from these turmoils, there's still humanity. We're still all one nation. So.
Thank you, Gil. Thank you, Rabbi Bell. Thank you all for coming out tonight, and we'll look forward to seeing you at future evenings in this series. Next week, same time, same place, Thursday, 7 o'clock.
Bye-bye, everybody.